This is so infuriating. Like, it's actually making my blood boil. I want everyone in jail. I want all of them arrested. I just think that this is the line beyond which we cannot allow them to cross. I don't care if it takes the National Guard, if it takes all of Pam Bondi's DOJ, if it takes President Trump personally making a visit to this church. I don't care what has to be done, but this is the red line, and they've crossed it.
Yes, of course, Megyn. My thought during your excellent monologue was, Megyn, how do you really feel? Will you please tell us how you really feel here? And of course, you use this word terrorism. That's not hyperbole. Terrorism has a definition. There are all sorts of violence. There's state violence. There's war. There's just war. There's law enforcement. There are crimes of passion. There are all different kinds of violence. Terrorism has a specific definition. It's when you target civilians with violence to achieve political ends. That is exactly what happened here. When Don Lemon goes out and he presents himself as if he's just a journalist covering this. Now it seems, though, he actually was working with the agitators. When he says that protest is about traumatizing people, that just isn't true. I'm sure he's not familiar with the Constitution or the meaning of most words, but protesting is for peaceably assembling to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That's where the supposed right to protest comes from in the Constitution. When you traumatize kids at church to achieve a political end, that is a form of terrorism. And to your point, Megyn, it violates federal law, because there's this law, which is frankly preposterous, which says that Christians and people who want to, just generally people who want to defend innocent human life, are limited when they advocate outside of abortion clinics. The FACE Act was passed, and the only way they were able to ram it through is to say, look, we'll stop demonstrations at abortion clinics, but we'll also stop demonstrations at churches. So you've got the churches.
That's exactly right.
The church of the right is just church, and the church of the left is the abortion clinic. And I'm even thinking of the line of Peter Kraft, a brilliant observation, which is that, abortion is the sacrament of the left. It even uses the centerpiece of the Christian liturgy, the Holy Communion, when the priest says, "This is my body," he's quoting Christ, "This is my body, which will be given up for you." And the left takes it and inverts it to satanic purposes, says, "This is my body," and they use it to sacrifice a little baby. So the FACE Act is supposed to protect both. It's only ever really used to protect the abortion clinic. Well, here, yes, obviously the federal government has to get involved. The one part I disagree with, though, in your monologue, Megyn, is when you say these people are busting in. This is, for some people, the one time of the week when they feel closest to Christ, and they're praying and they're worshiping, and this gives them some comfort. And, the left, they don't know that. I think the left does know that. I think actually you see throughout history, they always target the churches. They target the churches in the French Revolution, in the Bolshevik Revolution, in the Spanish Civil War, in Mexico. They do it for a purpose. I'm reminded, there was this clip going viral of a BBC presenter. She was interviewing a young man, said, "Who are your heroes?" He said, "Kendrick Lamar, and my biggest hero is Jesus." She audibly hisses. This is something out of the New Testament, like there's a demon there or something. This is really spooky stuff. And you see this nasty spirit animating leftist agitators throughout history.
Yes, I honestly, I've never felt so aware of demonic forces around us. I truly haven't. Started with Charlie Kirk's assassination, Michael, and I have just felt like they're everywhere ever since. Something has been unleashed that feels truly unholy. We have never needed St. Michael more than right now. And to cross into somebody's place of worship, I do wonder, it'll be very interesting to see how the mainstream covers this today, because I guarantee if you had a bunch of white MAGA types invading a mosque, this would be everywhere. And I wonder, how would it be covered if you had a bunch of people invading a synagogue in today's day and age and getting in the face of Jewish worshipers? Will there be any understanding or empathy for Christians who are in there worshiping on a Sunday at a Baptist service? Here's how Don Lemon saw it moments before he joined the resistance organization to go into that church. This is him outside of the church at the initial meeting. Seems pretty clear he knew exactly what they were about to do in SOT 6.
Well, this is kind of MAGA coded, right? So the American flag or whatever, but these are resistance protesters. They're planning an operation that we're going to follow them on. I can't tell you exactly what they're doing, but it's called Operation Pull Up. Again, this is an operation that is secret, that they invited folks out. Can't tell you what is going to happen, but you're going to watch it live unfold here on the Don Lemon Show. There are for this reason, it may look like MAGA coded, but there's a reason they have so many white people here. I'm just going to be honest. It's because of the operation that they're doing today. It's important to have allies, as they said, white allies here.
This is unbelievable. The flag and the white people make it, quote, MAGA coded. They had to have whites. He wants to excuse the presence of whites to his audience with his stupid DL mic flag, Don Lemon mic flag. Okay, Don. He's really missing his CNN days when he mattered. He has to excuse the presence of white people there because you see, like, they're going, he's about to do the big reveal. They're going into a Baptist church service. And so you see, you need some whites. Hello, lots of black people are Baptist too. You'd think you'd know that, but no. And you need the white allies there, you see, because you're going to go confront a bunch of white Baptists in Minneapolis. A new year means new financial goals, like making sure your savings are secure and diversified. Will this be the year you decide to talk to somebody from Birch Gold Group? You know, you've been thinking about it. They use an educated approach with a deep understanding of macroeconomics. There are forces pushing the dollar lower right now and gold higher, which is why they believe every American should own physical gold. So until January 30th, if you are a first-time gold buyer, Birch Gold is offering a rebate of up to $10,000 on qualifying purchases. To claim eligibility and start the process, just text MK to the number 989898. Birch Gold can help you roll an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold, and you are still eligible for a rebate of up to $10,000. Consider making right now your first time to buy gold and take advantage of a rebate of up to $10,000 when you buy by January 30th. Text MK to the number 989898 and claim your eligibility today. Again, text MK to 989898 now. As he makes very clear he knows what's about to happen, Michael, and truly, after that pastor said, get out, every single one of them was guilty of trespass, including Don Lemon.
Of course, he makes a number of uncomfortable admissions right now, which he should get blowback for in the media, but also he's probably going to have blowback from prosecutors on. He's admitting that he's in on it. You know, he's clearly one of the organizers of this. But even the worst admission, I think, is when he comes out and he says, yeah, and you know, it's MAGA coded. I mean, they've got American flags or like whatever. As if to say, our political movement, the left-wing political movement, is anti-America. He says, yeah, there's some white people, you know, like, I'm sorry about that, but we have to do it. It's MAGA coded. As if to say our political movement, the left-wing political movement, is anti-white people. It's anti-white.
Right,
it's
everybody
anti-American.
knows that.
It's anti-Christian. Obviously, it is. And so, you know, when you ask how will this be covered, by the establishment outlets, they'll try to downplay it entirely. If this were a mosque, this would be treated as the worst, most egregious form of terrorism ever in the history of the world. Because the left uniformly seems to worship Muslims, not because they agree with Islam, but because they all have a common enemy, which is the country and Christianity. If it were a synagogue, it would probably be 50-50, because some of the left is pro-Jews, a lot of the left is anti-Jews. You would have mixed coverage of it. The one thing the left is certainly in agreement on, though, is it's anti-Christian. And so they go in there. Don Lemon is obviously helping to organize this thing. He says, I have a little secret, but I'm not going to let you in on it right now. And then he gets up in the face of that pastor and just...
Let me hold that thought. I want to give you the exact quote. He's in the car before the shot we showed. He says, quote, we don't know what's happening. We kind of do. But we don't know how it's going to play out, right? And he mentioned the word church accidentally before they arrived. He was obviously trying to hide where they were going on the way over during the live stream, but he knew full well what they were about to do. Keep going.
These are the secret plans that Don, is letting slip a little bit. The very fact that he has the secret, tells you he's complicit. And then he goes up in the face.
Not exactly a Navy SEAL, is he?
No, I would not send him into Venezuela. Okay, that guy is not clandestine. No. But he goes up to that pastor and he starts mocking him. And this is what the leftist radicals have been doing to Christians going back at least to the French Revolution. Frankly, this is what opponents of Christianity have been doing going back to ancient Rome, is they mock the Christians. And so he says, well, I thought you were a Christian. Why aren't you just talking to these people who obviously have no right to just invade, interrupt a worship service? But he said, why don't you just talk to them? You can hear them shrieking and screaming in the background. Good on the pastor for saying, I don't think they want to talk. I don't think anyone's interested in talking here. And this obviously is not the time or place for that. Then Don Lemon, it actually cut out, but a little bit later in that clip, Don Lemon says, well, look, I'm a Christian. Look, I'm a Christian. And you have to ask yourself, in what meaningful way is this man a Christian? We don't need to get into his personal life,
None.
but even just his public behavior here, it doesn't
I mean, his personal life is relevant to the following extent. He has no children. He's a gay man in a gay marriage with no children. And he has absolutely no empathy for the children sitting there. I mean, he really doesn't. He's like, too bad, trauma's all part of it. Suck it up. As mothers comforting their young sons is apparently so long ago in his history, if it ever happened between Don and his own mom, that he's forgotten that children actually do have a right to feel safe, especially in a place of worship, and might feel unsafe with Mr. Kelly, a serial agitator who's running around actually hurting people, bursts into his church and screams in his face, in the face of his parents. Don doesn't seem to understand that at all.
By the way,
maybe
Megyn,
if he actually had a child, he might.
And don't forget the specific context here. It's not just that kids have been accustomed since Columbine to recognize that in schools, in churches, in public places, they could be shot up, they could be targeted. But specifically, there was...
Which just happened. Michael,
in Minnesota.
Yeah, were you just going to say it just happened? Yes, in Minneapolis. Yes. Like it just happened.
Yes,
and the nerve.
Specifically Christian kids.
Yes, exactly. And absolutely no sympathy or empathy for them whatsoever. The law, there is the trespass law. And by the way, you as a journalist can violate it. If you go into a private place without permission, or even a public place where permission is then withdrawn, meaning you're told to leave and you don't, you absolutely can be prosecuted for trespass. But there is also this FACE Act that you point out was originally meant to target abortion clinic protests. And the quid pro quo from the right was, well, you also have to include churches, which is really just a fig leaf until now, until you have Trump and Bondi in there who are actually saying, you know what, we're going to enforce it. And it says, this act prohibits the use of threat of force and physical obstruction that either injures, intimidates, or interferes, or threatens to, attempts to injure, intimidate, or interfere with any person who is pursuing their exercising their First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of religious worship. So so physical obstruction is enough. That is attempting to interfere with or intimidate any person at church. Got it? So it boils down to, have you by threat of force or by physical obstruction attempted to intimidate or interfere with somebody at worship? The answer is yes.
It's on camera.
It's yes to all of them.
Obviously. I mean,
it's on camera.
They're basically bragging about it. And so this is why the question of how will this be covered, I think has to lead us to the conclusion that it doesn't matter how it's covered. I don't care what the news networks say. I don't care what the New York Times writes or doesn't write about it. We are in the government right now, and the only way that you are going to discourage this is through a massive show of just force, of force that is very much in accordance with justice and with the law. But that's what's going to do it, okay? The law is a teacher, and so we need to round all these people up. Biden was able to round up every Midwestern granny who took a selfie in the Capitol Rotunda on January 6th.
Yes, including journalists.
Yes, exactly. And here, we need to round all of these people up who broke the law. That includes Don Lemon. We need to tell them no. In many ways, what's going on in Minneapolis right now is the consequence of the left encouraging people to violate the law and never holding them to account. So when that lady who ended up getting shot by the ICE officer because she ran her car into him, when she was shot, I felt sympathy for her because she didn't think there would be consequences to their actions. Look at Minneapolis after George Floyd. Look at the left rioting and disrespecting law enforcement and even attacking law enforcement for years now. Of course, she didn't expect consequences. That's a pity. We cannot give up law and order because of that. We need to remind people there will be consequences. This will not be tolerated. You will not be permitted to obstruct law enforcement. You will not be permitted to target Christians. You will not be permitted to scandalize little kids. I mean, that issue, frankly, takes us all the way to the transgender fights that we've been having in recent years. You have to make clear that there is order. What you mentioned, Charlie Kirk's assassination. After Charlie was assassinated, a lot of people, I think in some ways to cope and process our grief, we said, well, you know, you might have assassinated one of the great conservative leaders, but we'll only be stronger after this. And sometimes that's true. Unfortunately, usually it's not. The reason why people keep doing assassinations is because by and large, assassinations work. That's a very hard truth. And frankly, Charlie's assassination did create a lot of turmoil and division on the right. That's what it was designed to do. That's what it did. The reason that the left goes into the churches is because they can intimidate Christians, and by and large, it actually does work. The reason why they obstruct law enforcement is they can stop law enforcement from carrying out the law. By and large, it does work. We have to prove to them that it does not work. This is not merely a matter of, appeasing our passions or even bringing about some retribution because these clips get our blood boiling. This is an existential matter for law and order in the United States. If we're going to allow roving leftist mobs to go in and traumatize, their word, not ours, traumatize little Christian kids while they pray to God, we might as well give up the constitutional order because it would be meaningless.
Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.